Greetings, Starfighters. Welcome to the Season 8 wrap-up episode of Shameless Cashgrab, the season where I looked at Hallmark Channel Christmas movies. So, this is the first video of 2023, and I am filming this as we are closing out the first fortnight of 2023. So, how am I feeling so far about the new year? Pretty much that. Not really sure how much I'm allowed to go into at this moment, so let's just say it's not been great. But got an old friend from my podcasting days, Christiana Ellis, to do the countdown voice this season. She hosts a movie podcast with her friend Mike Mateen called Watching 100 Movies. There'll be a link to her site in the show notes. She's also an author. She's written a fantasy novel I really enjoyed called Nina Kimberly the Merciless, and a detective novel called Phyllis Esposito, Interdimensional Private Eye. Both are really fun. She routinely reads stories for the Escape Pod science fiction short story podcast, and also its horror spinoff Pseudopod. And so unless if this is your first one, and the off chance this is your first ever season wrap-up episode, I rank the movies that I watched in the previous season, which if you haven't watched any of those episodes, you're probably going to be a little confused. And then after that, I announce the next season, and that's going to include posting the title card that's going to be used for next season. The artist for that card will be credited in the credits and also the show notes. So let's start ranking these motherfuckers.
Number 4, Christmas by the Book.
I can honestly say that Christmas by the Book is probably the most realistic of the movies in this set, as it features a blonde white lady managing to succeed despite being something of a total fraud. Not a great movie. Although I will say, based on some reviews of some other Hallmark Channel Christmas movies I've seen, it seems that even with this, the worst of the season, I still kind of got lucky. Oh, did you see the one that Pushing Up Roses reviewed last month? The Christmas Angel thing? It would take very little to turn that into a horror movie. In fact, I'm not sure the people who made it... Maybe they were trying to make a horror movie, but it got turned into a Christmas movie in editing? Anyway, let's move on to...
Number 3, A Majestic Christmas.
A Majestic Christmas. Nah. Just, nah. The most noticeable thing about it really is its fairly diverse cast, which the movie after it does about as well. So, yeah. Not much really to say here. I suppose it is unique in that, unlike most of these movies, it's actually the male character who decides to return to his hometown to be with the love interest, as opposed to the woman character. But even that's not particularly interesting in this movie. I mean, points for going against formula, I guess. But
Number 2, Memories of Christmas.
Memories of Christmas had a reasonable shot at the number 1 spot this season, actually. What kills it ultimately is, and this is a problem that surfaced in the previous movie as well, where the male romantic interest has a tendency to jump to the worst possible conclusion. Also, he's kind of actually a little bit worse than the male interest in A Majestic Christmas, really, because especially in the first act, when he's kind of nagging the lead character into putting up the Christmas decorations when she's said that she's not interested. Really pushing that whole, neighborhood conformity kind of thing. But what puts it above Memories of Christmas and also Christmas by the Book is you got a really solid supporting cast. I especially Gary Chalk and the actress who plays the male love interest's sister, and also I think the kid who played his nephew was pretty good too. And I mean, like, not just by child actor standards. I mean, he was actually pretty decent. I mean, not great, but decent. So that's what elevated it up to number 2. But I had to give number 1 to the next one, and I'm going to get into that in a minute.
Number 1, The Last Christmas Home, also known as Last Vermont Christmas.
I have never felt this conflicted about a number 1 before. Because it probably, I think none of the movies in this set actually just are like 100% in line with the typical Hallmark Channel movie formula, which is probably a good thing. But this one adheres the closest, so you'd think it would probably be the one I would like the least, but here's the problem. Well, I say problem, here's the reason I end up putting it over Memories of Christmas, is that the male lead in this movie, who, I mean, I think it says a lot that the biggest problem I have with this character is his haircut, which I went into in my episode on that movie. I mean, he doesn't jump to any sudden conclusions. He doesn't, like, eavesdrop on people. He admits when he's wrong about something to his business partner. And he doesn't push the matter during the third act breakup. When she asks him to leave, he leaves. She goes after him when she changes her mind. More mainstream movies should do that, honestly. At least more mainstream romantic comedies should do that. More mainstream Christmas movies should do that. The fact that it's in this movie is kind of astonishing. I mean, apart from that, like I said, I'm really conflicted about this. I feel so weird putting this movie at number 1 because here's another issue. Remember how much I complained about the lack of diversity in the previous season, and how my whole thing about it's like, hey, isn't it kind of funny that there are more people of color just on the cover of this thing than there were in all of season 7? And now here I am giving the number 1 spot to the second whitest movie in the set. But, there it is. I mean, I think, there's a plot issue with the parents that I went into in the episode that I think they really should have said something sooner, and I think the only reason they didn't was so we could have drama here, and I would have liked to have known more, at least a little more, about the background of the younger sister's love interest and sort of like, the sub-romance going on there. I mean, we don't need to know a lot, clearly. The movie is less about them than about, the Pink Ranger and the guy with the Nazi haircut. And I was just, oh God, I would like this movie so much more, honestly, if he'd had a different haircut. Because he's not a bad character at all. It's just really hard for me to see the top of his head and not think, man, wasn't it great when Richard Spencer got punched? But, in spite of that, here we are. Last Christmas Home. Best movie of season 8, and I was gonna say earlier before I started filming that we might have a new worst of the best thing, with the previous being sort of the Killing Machine from season 4. But thinking about it more here, I think I might actually like this movie more than the Killing Machine. Oh God, I feel so conflicted about all this. Again, bashing the last season for the lack of diversity, and then going on to give high praise to, again, the second whitest movie in the set, where the only character of color is in an antagonistic role. But on the other hand there, she's not unreasonable and accepts defeat with grace, so even then, it's really not that bad. Yeah, okay, so yeah, I think I actually do. Despite a few problems, I do think I actually like this movie more than The Killing Machine. Wow. I can't believe I'm saying that. But yeah, The Last Christmas Home, the number one movie of season 8. I think I've said that already, so let's move on. So, with the title card by an artist named Flora T, I will have a link to her Tumblr in the show notes, and there'll be a link to her Tumblr in the credits as well. So wasn't sure how to announce this one, because this is kind of an iconic character. So far from struggling to come up with a reference, I actually have just way too many possible references to choose from. I mean, just the Mel Brooks and Kevin Costner version and Disney versions alone. And hey, I think I might have just given it away there. Robin Hood movies. And here's the interesting thing. None of these movies actually have the name Robin Hood in the title. I don't think I've ever seen that before. I think any time I have ever seen or even merely heard of a movie or a TV adaptation or whatever that featured Robin Hood in it, the words Robin Hood were in the title, but that's not the case here. What does that mean for these movies? I have absolutely no idea. I haven't even taken the plastic wrapping off the case yet, but I do know that Peter Cushing is in one of these, so I know that's going to be fun at least. See you next season, folks!